The sun hung low over the desert, bleeding its last fire into the horizon. The air shimmered above the endless sweep of sagebrush and sandstone ridges, and the lone rattle of a cicada filled the silence between wind gusts. In the Wild West, twilight was never just evening. It was a warning. Shadows stretched long, and with them came danger. On the trail leading west out of Abilene, a stagecoach groaned under its own weight as it lurched forward. Dust plumed in its wake, coating the horses in a fine layer of grit. Inside, a young woman sat stiff-backed, hands folded in her lap, trying to appear braver than she felt. Her name was Clara Davenport, 20 years old, born in Charleston but long since stripped of lace and gentility by the hardships of the world. Life had left her with little choice. Her parents had died during a fever outbreak, the family fortune had crumbled, and in desperation she had answered an advertisement in the Pioneer's Gazette. Wife wanted, must be strong of stout character, willing to make a life in the mountains, inquire at Fort Halleck, correspondence to John Boone. Clara's heart had seized on that one word. Wife, not maid, not companion, not worker, wife. A chance perhaps at belonging, at not being utterly alone. The coachman cracked his whip, and Clara tightened her grip on her valise. The other passengers, a traveling salesman, a farmer and his wife, and a slouching gambler, kept to themselves. Everyone had their burdens, no one asked about hers. But Clara knew whispers about her destination. Fort Halleck, the mountain the Boone man. She had overheard the gambler mutter, "Poor girl don't know what she's riding into. He ain't a man, he's a legend, and not the good kind." By the time the stage rattled into the tiny settlement of Laramie Crossing, night had fallen. A single lantern burned outside the saloon, throwing a weak glow onto the crooked hitching rail. The coach drew to a stop. End of the line, the driver called. Clara stepped down, her boots crunching on hard dirt. She pulled her shawl tighter against the night chill. A man in a sheriff's badge approached, his boots heavy and his mustache bristling in the lantern glow. Sheriff Elias Crow, a man as lean and weathered as the land he patrolled. "You the mail-order bride?" he asked bluntly. Clara swallowed hard. "Yes, sir. Clara Davenport. I've come to meet John Boone." At the name, a silence seemed to fall. The card players in the saloon stilled. A drunk outside muttered madness. Sheriff Crow sighed. "Miss Davenport, I'll be plain. John Boone ain't a man you want to tie your life to. He ain't been seen in town for 3 years. Lives up in the mountains alone. Folks call him the mountain man, but truth is, they call him worse too." The Clara squared her shoulders, though her heart thumped. "He placed an ad. He asked for a wife," I answered. The sheriff studied her. In her eyes he saw stubbornness, but also fear. He nodded grimly. "Boone, he's got a past. Folks say he killed men in cold blood. Some say he eats with wolves. Children won't say his name after dark, but I'll tell you what's true. He's dangerous, and he don't want company." Clara's lips trembled, but she set her jaw. "Then why would he ask for me?" "That's the mystery, ain't it?" Crow muttered. The next morning, Clara set out under the sheriff's reluctant escort. The trail into the mountains wound upward, growing narrower with each mile. Ponderosa pines closed in, their resin scent filling the crisp air. Clara's skirts snagged on branches, her boots rubbed blisters, and her heart pounded with every step. At last, they reached a clearing where a rough, hewn cabin stood against the mountainside. A chimney smoked faintly. A corral held a black stallion with fire in its eyes, and there he was, John Boone. He stepped from the shadows like a figure carved out of granite. Broad shoulders, tangled hair, beard thick and dark, his eyes, gray and stormy, fixed on Clara with a look that seemed to pierce her very soul. He wore a wolfskin over his shoulders, and in his hand rested an axe, its blade gleaming. Sheriff Crow shifted uneasily. "Boone, this here's Clara Davenport. Answered your ad." The Boone's eyes flicked from Crow to Clara. For a long, unbearable moment he said nothing. Then, in a voice deep as thunder, he growled, "I didn't send for her." Clara's blood ran cold. "But I received your letter. Your ad." She fumbled in her valise and pulled out the folded paper, trembling. "Here. In your hand, John Boone." The Boone glanced at the page, then let out a low, bitter laugh that echoed off the cliffs. "That ad was years ago. I put it out in a moment of weakness. I never thought no one be fool enough to answer." Clara's chest tightened. All the miles, all the hope, it came crashing down. "I have nowhere else to go," she whispered. "Please, please don't turn me away." The Boone's jaw tightened. His gaze softened for just a heartbeat, then hardened again. "You don't know who I am, girl. You don't know what I've done. Folks call me a killer, a caged beast, and they ain't wrong." Tears stung Clara's eyes, but she stepped forward, her voice breaking yet fierce. "Then cage or no cage, beast or man, I'm still asking, please marry me." The wind howled through the trees, carrying the scent of pine and danger. Sheriff Crow shifted uncomfortably. Boone stared at Clara as though weighing her soul against his own damnation. Finally, with a voice low and ragged, he muttered, "You don't know what you're asking." But in his eyes, for the briefest flicker of a moment, there was something else. Something that made Clara's heart refuse to give up. The morning broke sharp and cold, the kind of mountain dawn that bit into bone. Mist hung low in the pines, curling around the cabin like restless spirits. Clara awoke on a straw mattress in the corner, the rough cabin walls creaking with every gust of wind. She hadn't slept much. Boone's presence loomed in her mind all night. Wild, unrateable, terrifying yet strangely human beneath the scars. He hadn't agreed to her plea. He hadn't refused either. Instead, after her desperate words, Boone had turned without another glance, muttered, "Sleep inside or out. It's no matter to me," and disappeared into the dark. Now, Clara rose and stepped outside. The air smelled of smoke and pine. Boone was there, already at work splitting logs with his axe. His movements were fluid, precise, each swing of the blade carrying the weight of controlled fury. "Morning," Clara said, her voice small. Boone didn't look at her. "You should leave." She tightened her shawl. "And go where?" "Back to Charleston. My parents are dead. My kin scattered. I spent the last of my money to get here." At that, Boone finally looked at her. His storm-gray eyes narrowed. "Then you made a poor choice." Clara's throat tightened, but she stood her ground. "Maybe. Or maybe I made the only choice I had left." For a moment, silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken truths. Then a sound broke at hoofbeats, distant at first, then growing. Boone froze, head snapping toward the trail that wound down the mountain. His hand went to the rifle propped against the woodpile. Clara's heart jumped. "Who is it?" Boo's jaw clenched. "Trouble." The riders appeared moments later. 5 of them, dust pluming behind their horses, outlaws. Their leader was a scarred man with a black hat pulled low and a red bandana around his neck. Boone's grip on the rifle tightened. "Who are they?" Clara whispered. "McGraw's men," Boone said flatly. "They've been sniffing around for months." The riders pulled up in the clearing. The scarred leader grinned wide, revealing broken teeth. "Well, well, the ghost of the mountains does live after all." John Boone, the caged beast himself. His eyes flicked to Clara and his grin widened. "Eddie's got himself a woman now. Ain't that something?" Clara stiffened. Boone stepped in front of her, rifle leveled. "You got no business here, McGraw." The outlaw chuckled. "Oh, but I do. There's a bounty on your head, Boone. Alive or dead, and I reckon dead's easier." The air tightened like a drawn bowstring. Boone's finger hovered near the trigger. Clara's breath caught. Then chaos. Gunfire erupted, shattering the morning stillness. Boone shoved Clara behind the woodpile and fired back. Bullets sparked off stone and splintered wood. Horses screamed, outlaws cursed. Clara pressed her hands over her ears, heart pounding like a drum. Boone fought like a man possessed. His shots were unerring, his movements fierce and primal. 2 outlaws fell before the others retreated, dragging their wounded leader back down the trail. Silence descended once more, broken only by Boone's ragged breathing. Clara crawled out from behind the woodpile, shaking. "They'll come back," she whispered. Boone's jaw tightened. He lowered the rifle. "Aye, they always do." That night, Clara found him sitting alone by the fire, wolfskin draped around his shoulders. His face was lit by the glow, shadowed with old pain. "You fight like a man who's got nothing left to lose," Clara said softly. Boone didn't look up. "Maybe I don't." Clara stepped closer. "Why do they call you the caged mountain man?" His eyes flicked to hers, haunted, stormy. "Because I was once chained like an animal, taken prisoner in the war. Union camp, they kept us in cages, like beasts. Some men broke, some died. Me, I lived, but I never walked out whole." Her heart ached at the rawness in his voice. "You survived," she whispered. "I. But what came out of that cage weren't the same man who went in. That's why folks fear me. They see the beast, not the man." Clara's eyes filled. She dropped to her knees beside him, her voice trembling but fierce. "Then let me see the man, please. Don't push me away. You asked once for a wife, someone to stand by you. I'm here, and I'm not leaving." Boone stared at her, every muscle taut, every emotion warring in his eyes. For a long moment, silence reigned. Then, slowly, he reached out, rough, scarred fingers brushing hers. It was not a promise. Not yet, but it was something. The days passed. Clara worked alongside Boone, hauling water, tending the fire, mending what she could. Boone said little, but his eyes followed her more often. The silence between them grew less harsh, more companionable. But peace was fragile. One evening, as the sun dipped red over the peaks, a messenger rode hard into the clearing, a young deputy from town. His horse was lathered, his face pale. "Sheriff Crow sent me. McGraw's raising hell. He's gathering men, swearing he'll burn Boone out. 50, maybe more. He means to finish what he started." Boone rose slowly, like a storm building. His eyes burned. "Then let him come." Clara's blood chilled. 50 men, John. That's suicide. Boone turned to her, voice low and steady. "I've lived caged. I've lived hunted. I ain't running no more. If they want me, they'll find me standing." Her throat tightened. Fear battled with something else inside her, something fiercer. She stepped forward, gripping his arm. Then you won't stand alone. I'll fight with you. A Boone's storm gray eyes searched hers. For the first time, something broke through the cage. Something raw, human, and desperate. Clara, he whispered. You don't know what you're binding yourself to. She swallowed hard, tears burning her eyes. Yes, I do. I asked you once. I'll ask you again. Her voice trembled but held steady. Please marry me. For a long, breathless moment, Boone stood frozen. Then, slowly, he bowed his head. He whispered, voice rough with something like hope. I will. The battle came with dawn. McGraw's gang swarmed the mountain like locusts, torches blazing. Gunfire cracked, shouts echoed. But Boone and Clara stood their ground, he with his rifle, she with a pistol gripped in trembling but steady hands. Side by side they fought. Smoke filled the clearing, bullets whined, men fell. Boone roared like the beast they all feared, but beside him Clara's courage burned like fire. And when the dust finally cleared, McGraw lay broken in the dirt, his gang scattered to the winds. The mountain was quiet once more. Boone dropped to one knee in the blood-stained earth, staring at Clara with a look that stripped him bare. You saved me? He whispered. Not from them, from myself. But Clara knelt before him, cupping his scarred face in trembling hands. No, John. You saved yourself the moment you let me in. The wind carried the smell of pine and smoke. The sun rose golden over the peaks. And in that moment, amidst the ruin and the blood, two souls who had been lost found each other. Bound not by fear, not by cages, but by love fierce enough to survive the Wild West itself.